Hey everybody, it's David R. Becker here, and we're here in Duluth, Minnesota today, and it's a little bit different. I'm not doing it live. It's pretty cold out there, and it's not sunny, so I'm going to do a little paint-along. I thought this week in the hotel room here in Duluth, Minnesota, and I will what I have here for you today is a scene. It looks like, I'm not sure where it's from, but there's a bunch of sheep on a mountain, so we're going to do that today. This week, paint along will be that scene we're doing. And this week, I'm going to be doing it on 300-pound Stonehenge Aqua and Holbein Watercolors. And let's get right down to it. And this will also be pre-recorded. I pre-recorded this, and so that on Thursday, I will be not around. I'll be heading to Grand Marais to do a plein air workshop. So for the plein air workshop, we're going to go around and paint all for about a week. And so I'll be up there, see anybody who's up there. If you're up there, let me know. I'd love to see and get in touch with you. And so here we go. We're going to, one second, we're going to go here to our tabletop and just get started. Of course, this will be on YouTube, and there will be no people not live, so you won't be able to ask questions, but you can put comments down later. So what I'm doing here is we're going to start with the sky, and you see the sky is kind of like the blue with the nice dark clouds. So I'm just going to come right in here right away. I don't have a board, and the lighting isn't super great in here, but we're going to do what we have to do. So we're going to come right down into the water, or to the top of the cloud, or up to the mountains. Let's see, these mountains are, we can go right through them. We want to get some nice water. I'm wetting the paper basically all the way through. I didn't clean my palette because I've been out plein air painting and practicing for my next week's plein air thing I'm doing. So let's see, we'll start out with a little bit of this blue here. I know it's hard to see, but that's my ultramarine blue. Oh, that's Prussian blue actually. Let's clean this up a little bit so you can see a little bit more. So I'm just going to take it and give me a little room here. And so taking a little bit nice blue, ultramarine blue, come on here, just let it bleed down. And as you notice, it gets darker as it goes into the corner. So I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. See, this is all wet. I pre-wet it. Of course, we have a really terrible blur thing there. I don't have any board with me, so we're going to be doing it right on the 300-pound paper, no board behind it. And actually, one second, let me get a board. I have a board here. I'll put on this quick board here just so that it's just a little bit more stable. That way I get a little more stability and I can raise it up a little bit. I should have looked at this before. So put this little underneath here so I don't get as much of the, what you call it, the glare, which will probably look like still we're getting some, but we'll try to get less and less as we paint along here. And so I think we got the whole painting in there. And then these clouds down here, we're going to go around. Let's take some of this light blue. Try to paint around these clouds in the bottom. Still letting the pigment float. Blue in this. Come down here. Of course, the sky is lighter as it goes to the distance, so sometimes you have to use white in that blue. What I do is I use white and blue together, and that way it'll be a light blue, but I'll have more pigment to stop the water from running. That's kind of a new thing I've been doing lately, is that if you need this pigment to stop running and you need a light color, and a lot of times what that means is if you're using a dark color and you use a lot of pigment, then it just stays dark, and you can't just dilute it with water. So just add white to that color, and then you'll add pigment, making it lighter, and then that'll stop it a little bit easier from washing all over the place, because then you are not diluting the water, you're putting more pigment in, and that will give you more thing to then, what you call it, to to be able to stop the pigment from running all over when there's a lot of water on the paper. I'll go over that again if that didn't explain it too well. But basically, what you're doing is you're taking, and you need pigment to stop the water from flowing, you know, and making all the pigment just flow. So the more water you have, it's just going to bleed all over. Well, if you have more pigment, it stops it from bleeding in a wet wash. But sometimes if you're using a dark color and put too much of that dark color and you want to lighten it by diluting it, you can't, because you can't stop it. So that's when you use white. You dilute it. You don't dilute it. You just add white to make that color lighter instead of diluting it to make it lighter. So I hope that makes more sense. So here we're going to take a nice dark blue now in this corner over here. Ooh, that's really dark. Let's see, let's go. We're just going to put that over here. It looks like there's a nice dark sky on this side. Just going to come in here, and again, it's wet already. I wet the paper first, and that way I get soft edges, right? You get soft edges, and if you want a gray, take a little bit of orange into the blue. It gives you kind of a grayish brown. And the more water you use, the more it's going to run. Remember, the more water, the more it's going to run. But you can add more pigment to stop it from running all over the place. So I'll take a little bit of this light blue here and then just put it down. See how nice it looks? It's all soft edge. I don't have to do anything. It softens itself. And I'm putting a little bit darker clouds in this area. It's all fun working wet in the wet. I mean, I really enjoy working wet in the wet. A lot of it just kind of controls itself and does a lot of things on its own. So that's really cool. I'm going to take my smaller brush because these clouds still, I want to get a little bit more detail in them. I'm going to use white and the light blue. Get in there and just get a little bit more detail in the clouds. You know, because the more pigment I'm using, the more I can control the edges of those clouds. And I'm going to get underneath the clouds too, because if you look, we've been having some great skies here in Duluth these last couple of days that I've been here. And here you're actually going to use a little white too, just to kind of go underneath. But underneath the cloud usually is flat. So a white cloud usually has a flat underneath. I don't know why, and I was going to ask weathermen one day if I ever run into one, why underneath a cloud it looks so flat. Like, why does the cloud bubble on top? Kind of bubbles, but then underneath it's very flat, like it stops, and somebody cut it off and he hacked it off a little bit on the bottom. So I'll push this up a little bit so you can see the whole painting. So here are these clouds again. I'm putting in, and then there's even a cloud in front of a cloud. And then these clouds will have, there's gonna be mountains back here, and they're gonna, after I get the light wash in there for the clouds, I'm gonna go back in and get shadows. There's actually shadows on the clouds, which is really cool. Underneath, you're gonna see the darks, a little bit darker. It's starting to dry there, so you gotta put a little bit of water in that. Again, it's flatter. I would actually use a little bit of lavender too when you're doing underneath. It's more gray underneath the cloud. And the farther away it goes, the flatter your clouds are going to look. The farther away you go, the flatter your clouds will look. Now these mountains over here are going to be really dark, so I can go right through that with this lighter color. I'm going to make them a little bit darker later. And so there's our sky, and then what we're going to do right away is we will go right into our water, because the water is pretty much the color of the sky. And I'm going to do it light to dark, and as I go over here. Now the sheep are lighter. Looks like the sheep are lighter. These two over here are darker than the water. This guy over here is also darker than the water, almost close to the same. So you decide. I'm going to make the water back there lighter, since it's going to make the water lighter back here. And as I go down, so I add water. And it's small enough I can go around these sheep heads so that it will not affect the heads of the sheep, even though they're probably darker, but we're going to just go around it. I'm just sweating around it, and not that big a deal. You always put masking fluid there, but then that becomes a little bit tough, because then it gets too hard-edged for what I want it to be. And so now we go in here, and we just keep on getting darker and darker. Get my ultramarine in here. It's going to be the same color as the sky. I try to keep it the same color as the sky. So being here in Duluth, I'm just waiting for the Grand Marais to start. I was last week at Dillman's, teaching at Dillman's, and I'll be back there again next year in the spring. And it was a great acrylic class we had there. And so we're going to be coming back and next year do acrylic and a watercolor. This is a watercolor by chance, not an acrylic like the last post I just posted. I did, before I left Dillman's, I did about 2 videos, and if you look at them here on YouTube, actually one is on Facebook on Dillman's site. Again, pre-recorded like this one. This one's pre-recorded, and I'll get it on there on Thursday, and so you guys can just watch it and just paint along. I will not be live. I'll be up in Grand Marais painting, hopefully, the beautiful scenery around that area. I'll put this water a little bit higher because it keeps on giving me little dots here, which I tend to do a lot if I have the water right next to the paper because you're spattering it. All right, so there's the water. Now the land kind of goes into the same look as the water here, back here. I'm just gonna make it slightly darker. Oops, shaking the camera. What the heck happened this here? Yeah, boy. Come on. What happened? Okay. Okay, here we go. We're back. We're back. I'm not sure I did. This is being recorded, so it's not live. So it's the computer just shut down for a second there. So now let me see what I'm doing. So here we go. There's the little land way back there. Going to be kind of light. Just going to kind of lighten it up. And there's actually snow on these mountains a little bit farther. So what am I going to do? I'm going to keep it the white of the paper. And then just go in here and create the mountains. And where there's snow on the mountains, I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm going with a lot of blues because it is blue back there. I'm keeping this a little bit lighter too because I'm going to come in later with the clouds. We're going to cast shadows on top of these mountains. It's going to be kind of fun. If you look at the picture, and to pick up the picture, just go to my website at davidartbecker.com or beckerart.net. You can pick up the images there on my website, and actually they're pretty big. If you click on the one on the bottom, it comes up pretty big. So here we go, and the front of this is all nice and snowy. So I'm just going to take and give it a nice snowy feel. And one thing I like about Duluth here is that they have a lot of harbors. And me being a boat guy, next couple of paintings will probably, you're going to see a lot of boat paintings. I got some amazing pictures of boats this weekend. Been taking a nice bike ride and got some nice great shots of waterfalls and woods and paths, and it's going to be some nice paintings coming up here. So here we go again with a little bit darker in the front here. As you go to the front, you get a little bit darker. Trying to make these are little hills back there. I mean, mountains we got going here. And you figure, look where the sun is, and the sun is pretty much above. And so since it's above, underneath the sheep are going to be a little bit darker, but same thing here. So I'm thinking the sun's kind of coming this way, and so the back of the mountain should be a little bit, this side should be a little bit darker, so you kind of go in there and just kind of darken. But with the snow being on some of the sides, you just kind of take your brush sideways real quickly and just make it a little spackled. You're kind of just hitting the side with the side of your brush, getting a little dry brush on there. All right, now it look like snow. You can put a little bit of the shoreline, you can make it a little bit darker. All right, and so now the sheep are the lighter part of this foreground, so I'm going to paint them all together as one. You don't paint them each individually because then what happens is it just starts looking too separate. And so what I'll do is I'll wet the sheep, put a little water in them, and they're kind of a warm orangey gray. And so I'm just going to do that, take some orangey warm gray. And I used a little bit of orange, brilliant orange, a little bit of your dirty palette, which has some blue on it. And then as I wet it with a little bit of a color, kind of come through here, and basically the tops of the sheep are lighter and the sides and the bottom are darker. And their legs seem to be a little bit lighter too. So I'm going to try to do the light parts first. And that's the top of them. I'm going to try to separate them a little bit while I'm doing the tops and the sides. And once you get water in there, of course, what I'm going to do once I get water on the sheep, I'm going to take different colors and again just float them in there to kind of get the feel of what's the side darker, what's the top, which is lighter. And then later on for detail, I'll go in there and get the details. Not now, later on when I get a little bit more into the drying. When it's dry, and then I can go in and get the sides dark, tops light. Always remember. And so the grass underneath them will be dark, so I can negative paint them a little bit, so I can actually put the color into the ground. It won't matter because I'll be putting the darker color into the ground and kind of cutting out the sheep's legs by negative painting them. Hope that makes sense. Because what happens is that you want to, again, make everything feel together, like it's together. That's one big area of light. And so you kind of go in there, and you can put a little bit of other colors in there. I put orange, I put a little bit of red. I put a little bit of blue in there too, where it gets a little bit darker. Because from the grass below, it'll get a little bit darker. Again, wet it first. I like to wet it first, wet the sheep first. I didn't wet these one in front because I want to get a hard edge, so I'm wetting them kind of like the back ones first. Put in some color. Put in some color. And then go around this sheep and right into this sheep right here. I have no idea what it's at. This painting or this picture comes from unsplash.com again. So I thank them for letting us artists use their photos at unsplash.com. This one, I was just on Unsplash, I saw it and I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So it's just something different. Again, I'm always trying to find something different for you guys to paint other than landscapes every time, or this is a landscape, but a little bit different. A little bit different. And now let's see the face of that guy. It's a little bit higher here. A little bit darker. And again, you don't have to get so detailed with these sheep because you pretty much will know by doing one of them what the objects are. You tend to overemphasize a lot of times objects in a painting, and I mean the drawing alone will already tell the viewer what it is, and then you don't have to explain every single thing about it. It can be off a little bit, and they'll still know. They'll still know that these are sheep. We're pretty smart. Our brains are pretty smart to know what an object is by looking at it. And if it's close to that object, and then maybe the shading isn't exactly right, that doesn't matter. The drawing will take care of it. Okay. So here we go. There's some of the sheep. Let's get a little bit more blue in some of the bottom parts again. That way it'll kind of correspond with what I did there. Here I got even a little watermark back there that looks actually pretty good. I like watermarks sometimes when they do nice things like that. And what I'll do is I'll just rub out the side a little bit of the watermark and just make it look kind of like it's a little wave. All right. Oh, we forgot these sheep right there. Two more in the front. Let's go in there. They can be a little bit lighter, maybe because they're farther forward. And we got them really dark behind them. So let's go over the mountains because by that time this will dry hopefully, and then I can go around. And actually, let's do these rocks on the ground here. There's some rocks on the ground. If you look at the picture, they're kind of grayish, and I'll make a little violet, and I'm just going to put the light and part of that in. Again, the darks will take care of what the shapes look like. Be negative painted. Put a little warmth in these rocks too. Just putting a color on there because they're going to be cut out. These little rocks are going to be cut out. Here's along the side. Let's see, a little violet always helps it. Violet and blue, but it is a gray. I mean, it's basically gray. Come in here. Get a little bit of that going. Get a little bit more gray and also some warm orange. Oh, that's a little bit too orange. A little bit too red. That's okay. You can just mess it out a little bit, bring it out a little bit, and it'll be fine. And looks like there's some rocks over here. See, I'm lightening it up a little bit, and it's a little bit too orange there, so I'll put a little bit of yellow. Put more of a golden rock. Okay. Let's get these little deer heads over here. All right, let's go with the mountains. The mountains in the back here are my darkest, and also the sheep right there is a little bit dark, and maybe we'll make that darker. So let's go with a nice, rich, bluish orange or bluish purple. There's permanent violet, blue, and looks like the farthest one back is a little bit lighter, so I'm gonna add a little bit of light blue to there, or a little violet, lavender, I mean. Go back here, and it's gonna be darker than what I have, so that'll be all good. See, I was just gonna sit back there, and I wet it with quite a bit of paint, but then once I wet it and I bring my brush across it, then it becomes wet, right? It becomes a wet wash, and so then I can go back in and put other colors in there. And so as I come forward, I get a little bit darker. It looks like there's going to be, I try to make the side a little bit lighter. And we're going to go right into underneath here a little bit. I know this is a little wet still, but that's okay. I'm just going to go in there. And that's a little bit too bright for me, a blue, so I'm going to tone it down a little with a little bit of orange. Now we're going to get this really dark right here. Let's bring that right up there. That's like a Prussian blue. It's pretty thick also, if you take a look. Prussian blue, pretty dark. It's coming over this way. I can even leave a little snow there if I feel like that is what I want. So it doesn't all have to look exactly like the picture. If I put a little bit, that's cool. A little bit right on the side. And then as you come forward, we're going to get a little bit lighter. Here's our sheep. Let's just bring that over. I mean, I'm getting a little bit tighter because it has to look like, I want it to look like the edge of the sheep. Nice and warm, coming down. So just add red and orange to the bottom of this dark. Come right up to the edges that I had put there because it's a hard edge, so that's cool. Wet it a little bit. All right, so there we have the dark. Now let's get some green grasses going in there. So let's mix a little green with my quinacridone gold and my dark blue. And I'll just put that right in there because there's going to be a little green. I'm trying to put a little green in there. And then that's going to be over here. We're just going to fake that in a little bit. And let me put on a set of glasses so I can actually see what I'm doing. All right, now I can actually see something. So now we go in here and do the darks around their legs, which is kind of a green. Coming down. Again, I'm negative painting, so take your time, no rush. Just get in there. And also, for all of you people who want to take my workshop at the Duluth Art Institute in October, I gotta find out what's going on with that because I just was over at the building And it looks like the lady that I was working with no longer works there, so I got to figure out what I'm going to be doing, if something's happening with that class, or hopefully it's not canceled. I hope it's not canceled, because it's going to be a fun one. Again, watercolor workshop. It'll be my last one of the year, which is kind of sad because I love doing them, but we'll have to see what happens. I'll put that in my newsletter. Again, always watch my newsletter and my website to figure out what's going on in my workshop world, especially now lately with the coronavirus. We've had a few of them. They've been fun, but we just have to see what's going to happen with this one. Come down here. There's his leg. So I'm cutting around that shape of the sheep, and they're eating some grasses there. A little bit more green happening. Come around. And like to scumble grasses by just taking the side of the brush and kind of wisping. I'm not sure if there's a term, wisping, but it's just kind of like, see, like this, you just kind of tap it. It's kind of a dry brush effect, even though my brush is filled with paint and water. If I just tap it and then not really brush it, then I'm just using the surface, I'm getting a little bit of a nice little texture in there. You don't always have to use a lot of water, and you can use it thick, and then just, again, a dry brush effect of the paint onto the paper. Up there, we'll go a little bit lighter. As it comes down, it gets a little bit darker. Underneath the sheep is a little bit darker. And I'm not going for super realism. I'm just kind of going for the look of, that you kind of know, for one, that they're sheep, but more of a painterly look, where there's a lot of blurred edges, blurred areas. So come down here, get the edge of these rocks, even grasses. So I'm going to take my brush real lightly and just barely touch the point and make some few grasses. Bring it around. Keep on going. I like this darkness over here, so I've got my palette is already filled with that. So just sometimes when you see your palette is filled with all these greens, just go right back in there and grab them and put them down. You don't have to even mix them. Just take it off your palette, because that was mixed from before. So what's the difference? You don't have to remix it again if you got a lot of it on there. If you don't, of course, you don't have to get the exact color, but just get back in and get your green. Put it in there. Get some, again, I'm going to do some of it where it's dry brush kind of effect, so it gets kind of texture. Now, if I was doing this on hot press, I couldn't get that texture as nice, because you don't have the texture on the paper itself, so you're not going to get that textured look unless you kind of really wisp it and just kind of dot it like this. Then you may get that from the other paper, the hot press. So around them, around their legs, underneath there, get them in shadow. Basically, they're in shadow. Underneath them will be shadow underneath, because they're throwing a shadow onto the land. And then I'm getting all kinds of different greens, because it's okay. Get all different kinds of greens, no problem. Here, it looks like on the picture they have a nice dark going across here. That's fine. Well, I might as well do the same. And then just put a little dark here again. Let's get the tail a little bit shorter. A little bit of darkness for value. And then back over this way. Okay, this corner rock kind of bugs me a little bit. It's a little bit too light, so I'm just going to put a little bit of green through there. Though I can also put orange there, because it was kind of nice in the fact that it's not all the same color all the way throughout. Here and there can have slightly different colors. Rub a little bit here, get a little more texture. Okay, we're getting close. Now we just have to pretty much do the, looks like this area here in the photo is a little bit darker green. So let's make this a little bit darker green. I kind of go by what I see in the photograph because if it looks good there, it'll look good on your painting too. Hopefully, we'll see. So we're going a little bit darker here. Some little weeds here and there, or texture. And what else we have here? Yeah, a little bit darker throughout. Later on, we'll also give it a little detail texture. The grasses, more grasses in the background. I'm going to take a chair and sit down so I can get closer to the painting. And so all I have to do now is get a little bit more detail into the, well, actually, before I do that, I'm going to let that dry yet. And so back here in the clouds, we're going to go back and get our little grays in the underbelly of the cloud. A lot of times they're darker. Excuse me. And we're just going to soften that with a little bit of water, like this. So a little bit, again, to go straight, a little bit, you can use your fingers here and there. And see how when you do a little bit of straightness underneath the clouds, it looks more real. Get that little underneath the cloud. Let that be let that be straight. And a little bit grayer. You're just way up and getting all these little mountains. And if by chance you guys ever want to submit and send me some of these images that you feel you want to try to learn to paint, and I paint it as a paint-along, you do have to let me use it as a paint-along so other people can try it. So if you don't want other people to try it, don't send it to me. So I will put it out there, and we're going to see, you know, I'm going to let other people try it and paint it for the paint-along. If there's a certain, you know, thing that you like to see. All right, now there is also in there, in that area, there's going to be the clouds, and this cloud right here has a little bit of darkness into right here. So then you put the shadow part right into the land here, kind of like to show that this part of the land is sun's hitting it and it's shadowed. Kind of a fun concept that a cloud can throw shadows across. I just saw it this weekend in Duluth, where on the hillsides was shadows from the clouds above. Soften this area. Get the side of the things a little bit darker. All right, now last but not least, the sheep. Let's get into the sheep. Get them a little bit. Oh, sorry for knocking that. Come in here. Get a little bit of darkness in some of the sheep so that you get a little bit more contour of the body and know what's front, back, lighten shadows into the sheep. Let's see, what do they look like? It's hard to do these things when you're at a studio that you just built in your hotel room. So sometimes it's not going to look great, I think. I'm not even sure how the sound is sounding. Hopefully you can hear me. And I'll be going through it again and looking at it before I do send it off over to YouTube, since it's going on my computer basically first. A little bit of detail in the lambs, sheep, lambs. There we go, a little bit darker on this one. Legs can be a little bit darker. The back here can be a little bit darker. So that's enough to show. Again, and you already know that they're sheep. It's just now I'm going to go in and get a little bit more detail on them. Make it underneath them and show which one is farther back the leg and which one's forward, and how much wool they have on them by just tapping here a little bit. A bit darker. Same thing here. And I'm just using a darker color. Any color is fine. Just enough to make the goat look little bit three-dimensional. Tails, top, face. See, it's not about each individual sheep, it's just overall. So that's like when you're painting it, painted overall. Overall, that leg is a little bit darker. Overall, this whole sheep is a little bit darker. On the side, it's lighter. It can be more colorful. And then just one final touch will be just the dark, dark, darks. And that means like just to push things forward a little bit right there. A little bit more shadow underneath them. So shadow running to the back here. Little eyes. Eyes can be dark there. Over here we don't have much happening because it's like it's a little bit blurrier, which is fine. Yeah, that's good. A good thing. But maybe you just put a little bit more of a free wash on there, just to kind of make it so you really can't see exactly what's happening. Because anytime you can see something's happening, then you're like, well, why can't I see this or why can't I see that? Because I can see that little part. But if like it's all blurry, then we just feel like it's, you know, that's part of the blurriness of it. And like cameras used to be, you get blurry backgrounds and not everything's perfectly perfect. Okay, now the rock lines across the rocks here and there. These rocks have lines like cracks in them, and one more thing here in this kind of hill here. I'm just going to go with a little bit dark here and there, just to kind of. All right, let me see what it looks like here. I think we're pretty good here. Just a few more darks, a few more grasses. And I will look at it from a distance, and we'll call another demo paint-along. And again, if you do the paint-along and you like it and want to share it, I'm going to put together a bunch, and then even once in a while I'll be sharing some of what you guys in the student studio do. Just kind of fun to see what everybody's doing. They're doing some great stuff. And again, thank you for doing these, and keep on painting and floating your pigment. All right, let me just put this aside. I think that's pretty much it. We don't have to take tape off this time because I didn't have any. If I feel like the clouds are a little bit light, and let me just go really quickly, and I'm going to do a little bit more in the cloud here. This seems a little bit kind of wash over this with water. Let's just take pure white. And that's a little dirty, but we'll just take some pure white. Rinse it. Kind of go in there and just get a little bit of softness, and because in the photo it's like all really light that right through here. So we can do that with a little bit of water, a little bit of white. And we also have kind of going up through here. One second here. Just gonna wet that. It gives a shape of the top of the clouds, and also I can let that bleed into the background. It's kind of blurry, but I just want to get a little bit more of the lights in there. And it probably should be a little bit darker in this corner, but I think we're going to call it a day with that. And so let's get this out of the way, see what it looks like. One more thing, I think I don't like this over here. So one more thing, and then we will be done. Let me just put that on there. I'm just going to wet it. Again, anytime something's like this, the way to redo something is just take your brush real lightly, go over it softly, because I re-wet it. Nothing's going to happen until I put something down. So I really lightly went over it. I'm going to make this area just a little bit darker, and it's going to be a soft edge. Because why? Because I wet it. Remember? I just wet it a second ago. And I'll put a little bit of gray in there. I'll just gray out and just give me a little bit of a cloud. Soft edge. You can also use a bottle, a mister to mist it up. re-wetting it. I want this cloud right here to be a little bit darker, and then go into this cloud, which is also a little bit darker. And then you can also use a hake brush to soften the edges like that on something like this too. Hake brush kind of just softens it, and I don't have one with me at the moment, but that will soften an edge too. Hake brush is a goat brush, goat hair brush, so it's been perfect for this anyways. Put a little bit of blue in this one, it's in the corner. All right, I think we're pretty much it. You see, put this aside. All right. Well, let me go over here. Just end all this mess. And so, my glasses off. Thanks again, guys, for showing up and painting along. Again, if you want to paint along, go to my website and get that painting off my website at BeckerArt.net. And then send it to me on Facebook, and I will post it, and just, or you post it on my Facebook page, and I will leave it there and let everybody see what you had done. All right. Oh, this doesn't look so good up here. Hold on. I keep on looking over on the side there. This is a little bit too much of a triangle there, so I'm just going to put that there. Ah, look at that. Isn't that nice? Okay, that's it. Well, thanks again. Thanks again. We will see you next Thursday in Grand Marais, Minnesota, and we'll be probably doing a live outside demonstration out on some place at Grand Marais. All right. All right. So we'll see you next week. See you guys later. Bye-bye.